Just when I leave, you make the
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Sheridan, and I'm here tonight again with our councillor from Alphington Cowick, Neil Stevens, and his brother Tony from Exwick and St. Thomas. And we're going to be joined by two mystery guests here at about 25 past. I'm also aware that we, Neil and Tony, we have some VIPs listening in. They know who they are. But what I'm mindful of also is that you don't have to necessarily be a real superstar to be a VIP. I gave a little talk in church a couple weeks ago where I said you don't have to be, a PhD, because, for example, in our campaign we had over 50 people delivering leaflets, and we didn't care what skill sets they had. Their skill set was to deliver the leaflets. So everybody in the audience, a VIP, we appreciate you dialing in tonight. So without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to focus, guys, on the promises and the issues that you raised 2 weeks ago, right? And give you an update on those, if you could, please. And Neil, can I kick it off with you? I think you mentioned that you're going to get a meeting with the council going to address a couple problems. How's it coming with that?
Yeah, okay, so just step back in time a minute. Last week we didn't do the podcast because we were actually gone to Devon County Council where the cabinet was sworn in. I've got a lot to learn with the way things happen. I did stand up to do a little speech, but I was asked to sit down because it wasn't in the program, but I'm learning. All right, but what I have to do is make sure I don't upset anybody, because I can wear my heart on my sleeve. So if I do upset people, I apologize already. But a lot's been happening in the last 2 weeks. So we could start with small things like the sycamore tree, which is part of the Barton Fields, and it's upsetting some of the neighbours. We're trying to find out who can prune it, whose job's to manage it. I've wrote to Exeter City Council. They came back with a good reply, but it doesn't help the residents. That's one problem. Okay, second problem, Barton Fields again, where they've got the bowling alley. There's a couple of abandoned cars there. I know these are trivial, but for people down there, it means a lot. And also, there's a trailer and a car parked there. So that's been, I've wrote to Exeter City Council and Devon County Council to see if we can, even though they've got parking tickets on it, they haven't been moved for a long period of time.
Well, it also affects sort of our image of our environment and our self-image of ourselves when you see a bunch of abandoned cars, don't you think?
Yeah, but I also say, like down Queen's Road, for example, somebody parked just over the yellow line on a Sunday, and next minute there's a ticket. I don't know whose car it was, but there was a ticket, and obviously that guy's got to pay. We've got 2 abandoned cars, and the yellow tickets, it's even the packets worn away because it's been there that long.
Okay. That's crazy. Now, you're going to meet with the council, I think, Neil, or we talked about graffiti a little bit last week. That was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that was, we've got a meeting booked in next week. Okay, a meeting booked in to discuss the graffiti. Tony's going to cover that as well because he's been ringing up. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of balls up in the air. What we're trying not to do is drop all the balls. So all the emails that come in, we're replying as quick as we can, so bear with us. All right, what is a big problem to you, to Exeter City Council, can be a small problem. But our job is to knock the wall down.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was just wondering, how do people get in touch with you? What's your email address, for example, Neil?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, because even now I had somebody say I can't get hold of you, even all the publicity, all the flyers and everything that we've had. So if you go on to devon.gov, just type in neil.stevens, STEVNS, at devon.gov.uk. And same with Tony. Tony, yours is?
Mine's tony.stevens at devon.gov.uk.
Okay, that's pretty simple. That's great. Thank you very much. The interesting conversation about graffiti last week was, one of the facets was how actually it's a difficult problem because the graffiti is scrawled onto
well, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So the way I look at life,
you just can't go and
it is everywhere. And I might be wrong, but the council have basically given up and it's just let it take over. I know they have a cleaning team. We are in talks with them to find out if we can get the cleaning team out. And also, Tony, you were talking about when you spoke to the lady in the council.
The community payback scheme.
Yeah, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as I can work out, the community payback scheme is it's there to help with the projects such as weeding, clearing alleyways, clearing graffiti, whatever. It's basically a community service.
And who are the people on that team?
Well, the people who obviously have been given community service. The only drawback being, of course, when you look at it, there has to be toilets nearby or amenities nearby for obvious reasons, and they're all well supervised. So it's something that we never considered originally or knew nothing about, but it has come to light and it has been mentioned. So
yeah, but that's an obstacle. So we could laugh at that. So they want toilets, but they've closed all the toilets.
Well, that's it. You see,
they're selling
sold.
all the toilets. So the only thing is it feasible whether we can buy one of them portable toilets you go?
Well, that's it. It's a good scheme, a community payback scheme, but obviously it has to be near, for obvious reasons, amenities.
Okay, so back to the graffiti, Neil. We talked about. So, do you have a meeting with the council?
Got a meeting with the lady. I'm not going to mention names, and I won't mention anybody's names, but we've got a meeting with the council lady next week in order to see how we can use their graffiti removal team. And also this, these people who want to put back some form of community hours, so we can start doing it. We don't want to be painting boxes and then get
in trouble for
that we're graffiti by painting them back green.
Exactly.
But my personal view, if you drive around the city, I think the council have lost control or they've given up on it, and it's free for all.
Yeah.
That's graffiti. So our job is to try and get the council back into action. And every time we talk about something, it comes back to money.
Well, we talked a little bit about one facet of the graffiti, which is seeing if the council has locations for the street art.
Yeah.
Because without having agreed locations of the street art, every location becomes street art, and then you can't define what the street art is, right?
Yeah, well, Tony's doing a plan on that, which we'll present to you once we confirm it. We know some of them. We just want to know all of them.
That's interesting.
Okay, so Tony's working on that project as we speak, aren't you, Tony?
I certainly am.
That's fantastic.
Okay, if we flick on to cars, we've got a lot of abandoned cars. Okay, so this is what we are up against. So there's an abandoned ambulance at the top of Dunsford Hill. It is supposed to be yellow on the MOT. It is not yellow, it's painted green. I've took pictures, all the guts is ripped out. It's been there, it's parked on the pavement. I ring the police up. Police tell me it's Devon County Council. I ring Devon County Council up. They tell me it's Exeter City Council. I ring Exeter City Council up. And it's telling me it's Devon County Council. And then they tell me there's nothing they can do about it because it's MOT'd and taxed, even though it's abandoned. Okay, and I could tell you more stories about cars down Marsh Barton, which is Marsh Green Road. We've got to be careful here. There is people living in caravans down there, and the lady who came out the other day was very respectful. Okay, very respectful, and she explained what she does, and no issues. I've got no issues. The only issues I have when you've got two abandoned caravans, right? It just, and if you open them up, they're full of rubbish.
Well, you touched on one aspect, Neil, which I recollect because last year I emailed one of our local Exeter City councillors, and she said, "Oh, well, it's not my issue. I'll pass you over to Devon County." And it went on for months, and I finally just gave up. But I think what's encouraging to the listeners, what's encouraging to me, is that both of you are committed to getting the problem resolved. Doesn't matter if it's Exeter City or Devon County. You're not gonna say, "Well, it's not my job."
But this is where we're doing right now. Tony and I are writing emails and emails. Well, emails are okay, but it's easy to go, yeah, okay, and I'll do an automatic reply, and that's we'll talk about Stagecoach and their automatic reply. Tony, you're booking in face to face to get things done. It's got to be
I'm
face-to-face.
actually starting to get telephone numbers further up the chain, so it stops all the mucking around with emails and waiting for 10 days. As soon as I get a reply, I grab their telephone number, and from their telephone numbers, I get other telephone numbers. So I've actually sort of reached the top of the chain on some of the things. But unfortunately, it's the same thing again. It all comes down to cost.
Well,
Yeah, give us time. We will chip at that door. Is if we're just taking a brick out and we're trying to get through it. So Tony and I have actually met the guy from Highways.
Oh, yes, highways.
Okay. Tony, you explain yours.
Well, I mean, I did point out a few things like Isleworth Road and some of the issues in Exwick and Dunsford Hill, funny enough. And he did write it in a book, and he said, I'm fully aware of it. But again, that thing comes up again. It's all about cost.
Well, and bureaucracy as well, because to put yellow lines in, they're telling me it can take 2 years to paint a set of yellow lines. 2 years. I know they got to have planning permission, and I know the Devon County Council had their fingers burnt once, right, because they put yellow lines down without planning permission. But tell me, and anybody out there can explain why it would take 2 years to get planning permission to paint some lines down. And then what they say is they bring the people in from another city, Bristol, they wait for there's a load of jobs, and then they go around and do it all. All right.
Guys, you're saying a couple of times I've heard you say, but it's all about, we got the same problem, it's all about money. So in other words, how are you going to overcome that? Because we need to get this city cleaned up, right?
Okay, so remember, we're Devon County Council. We're not Exeter City Council, not yet, anyway. Okay, so that's my next target. Okay, we need to be looking at the books now. There's no fiddling going on or anything like that, so we're not saying that or anything. What we're saying is we need to be looking, and we've got a good guy in our team who's going to be looking at the audit. He's all over auditing to see where we can save money and where maybe some money is not relevant to, and where we can put it into to help the city, not the city, Devon. Remember, Exeter City is run by Exeter City, not Devon County Council.
Well, one aspect might be helpful. Now, I'm at an age that I remember John F. Kennedy's quote where he said, "Ask not what the country will do for you, Tony, but what you can do for your country." And we actually have an army of people that we're assembling, right?
Yep.
A lot of people come up to us and said, "How can we help you?" And as soon as we have some projects, which I think are going to be imminent, then we're going to deploy those. And so we won't have to rely and use the excuse, well, it's all about money, we can't do anything, the community needs to step up and embrace tackling some of these issues.
No, and that's a good point. So last night I was invited to the Alphington Village Forum, because they've got an AGM next Thursday at 5th at 7:15 in Alphington Village Hall. If anybody will turn up, that's where we're doing questions and answers. So you can ask questions to me, and I don't know who else is turning up. We're trying to get Highway to turn up and the planning department for that area.
What's the name of the organization?
Alphington Village Forum.
And what did they do, Neil? Tell us about that.
Basically, they're concerned, and I'm going to look at... I had a really interesting meeting yesterday, and I learned so much. Okay, when I go around meeting people, a lot of things is put onto my plate. And as I said, I'm only one man. But what we're doing now is... this workload will be distributed between our teams, okay? At our teams, okay? Right, and then, for example, yesterday I picked up Grindfield in Alphington, right? We need to be looking at that to try and secure it for the local people. There's loads of things I could go through. We're looking at, they were promised allotments. Looking at Shilliford Road, that's getting smaller. So what they promised, Devon County Council say, I was given documentation yesterday from 2014. What the plan is, apparently it's changed and changed and changed. So I've got somebody looking at why is it changing. There's loads of things going on, right? Biggest concern for me right now in Alphington on the Old Chudley Road. If you know the Old Chudley Road, there's a lot of building work going on there. There's no pavements. There is a slip road where people can walk and bike ride, which is an extra mile on their journey. But a lot of young families, children, pushchairs are using that road to go to school.
Neil, for those that aren't familiar with the area, who might be dialing in from outside, where is Chudley Road? What's the importance?
Right, it's an outskirts of part of my ward where they have, and Teambridge have built so many houses, lovely people, but there's no infrastructure. No infrastructure at all. You know, I could go on. You know, there's no surgery yet. So where are all them thousands of people going to go? I know where they're going. They're being distributed to the other surgeries. They got no doctors. You know, there's a lot going on. The more you read, right? But I can't handle all that. So if anybody wants to support our team to do research, okay, I'm the one knocking on the doors. Tony, you're knocking on the doors.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same. It's the same for St Thomas and Exwick. You know, if you get a team together, 10 people, you can do 10 hours work for what one person, you know, in an hour.
Yeah. Hey Neil, you mentioned a few times now the importance of the Alphington Village Hall to the community there, and last time we met, Tony, I think you were talking through some aspects of converting the firehouse or acquiring the firehouse. How's it coming?
It's the same thing again. I've gone straight to the top on this one. I've actually got telephone numbers. Exeter City are adamant that it's surplus to requirement, and unless everybody comes together, and I hope you all do, it depends how much you want the place, they will sell it. And in fact, they're thinking of redoing the planning to convert it to flats.
So they don't want to sell it to us.
They won't sell it to us. They won't give it to us. They don't want it because they say it's too expensive to run.
When you say us, in other words,
the community as a whole.
interest organization.
Yeah, unless you can come up with a valid plan and you've got the money behind you.
Yeah, but we are getting a team. We are looking at that now.
Well, this is what I pointed out. I did say, look, you know, I was only made a councillor 5 weeks ago. I said, you're not really giving us a chance to find a solution. And I said, once it's sold, it's sold.
Yeah.
And what are they going to sell next time in St Thomas, Exwick, Alphington, anywhere in the city? They don't want this, they don't want that. They've sold the toilets, they're selling this, they're selling that. There will be nothing left.
Yeah. Well, it sort of, you know, goes back to what I was saying before about the community and how the community needs to step up. There, within our community, you know, and beyond, there are people that would be willing to help. Some have some money, some finances. Are you tapping into those? Are you starting to talk to some of those people?
Go on, Tony.
Well, I was going to say it shouldn't come to people with loads of money to finance it. You know, these things should be put into the community.
Yes. Yeah.
If you were to sell any of these properties, where does the money go to?
Yeah.
I could hazard a guess. I'm not going to say, but the money would just be swallowed up, and then it's gone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you'll have more apartments, but they're not going to be for the local people.
But on the other hand, the problem is the way we have to deal with what we have now, which is, you know, they want to sell it. Okay, so I understand that. So
that's
the
money, orders
right?
they've been given from further up again.
Yeah. Okay, so we have an asset community value. That is what we can do. If we can present a case to them, we need 21 signatures, or some organisation is willing to do that, then we have 6 months. Going on to meeting people the other day, there's been a lot of meetings going on about double lines, but on that, there was a nice gentleman. As I said, I'm not going to mention names. I've put this idea to him. He is totally with helping local communities out. He's done a lot of donations to the church. He's got solar panels on his roof, so he's really green. He's come up with a brilliant idea down Marsh Barton. It's not for me to say because it's his baby. But people like them, if I can get them to support it, all right, we could get this. So that's one of our primary aims now, is to knock on that council door, get this business, I call it, together, which also ricochets down into Alphington with Grimefield. You know, if we can buy that for the community, it's a win-win. But Exeter City Council don't want to sell it to the community. That's my view. And if somebody in Exeter City Council want to come in and tell me why you don't want to sell it to the community, then let me know, and I will always apologise if I'm wrong. But they want to sell it. Everything's for sale in my eyes.
Okay, so you're taking the lead, and unfortunately, you're right. You know, we've only come on the radar last few weeks. Election was like earlier this month, actually. Well, so we have to really scramble around, and you're going to put together a ACV, I guess it's called, or something, get the signatures, and that'll kick off a 6-month process.
If you truly want to know, Rob, the advice I got given by somebody higher up involving things like that is don't run, concentrate on potholes.
Yeah.
Don't go doing things like that. That's our business. And
Tony,
think, you know.
That's fine, because guess what? They're not reform members, okay? And that's why we're here, okay? I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing, taking the lead. There are people out in the community. You're tapping into them. Did you say how long it's going to take, Neil? 6 months for this process to play
If we
through?
can put a case together now, it
Yeah.
will take 6 months. But
Okay.
even
So we
the
got a little bit of
councilman has
time
said
to-
he's not going to give us permission.
Well,
but we're still going to put it in.
It still goes
Right.
towards the council who says yes or no.
A couple of other things, because I have an important meeting in a minute, and I'll pass you over to our guests. I would like to say thank you to the Stagecoach managing director, Peter. I rung him the other day, got to the top. Normally when you might write a complaint letter, it goes to Scotland into their reply system. Peter actually came out with me, met me at the village hall in Alphington. He had a cup of tea with me. We've discussed the problems. Other people discussed with him. He's gone away 2 weeks to look at the A-bus. I'm learning all the time. A-bus is really vital. I was even told yesterday that the new station down there doesn't have a bus going to it. So that was one of the meetings we had, and I would update you on that as well.
And don't forget the heat pump one as well.
Okay, today Tony and I met a guy from, bear with me, iEnergy, and another guy. Interesting. I'm negative. I have been negative about the heat source pump. I'm not negative, but I need to look into it more. So the heat source pump it's a good idea, but it's going to cost a lot of money. So I'm not against it. I just need to learn more about it. And for you guys, do your research, look at it. The heat source pump, which will feed the hospital, the cathedral,
The university.
So, he was very honest and open. The guy's got he's got a master's in it. And I did say to him off record, is it a good idea? And he said, yes. Another question, they're going to tap into the heat burning place down there, even though it sticks out a lot of carbon up in the air. It's there for 20 years, guys, so they might as well tap into it to help support this project. So I'm not against it. I just need to learn more about it, and I suggest you guys do as well.
Well, we have to be careful because what was is it Cranbrook? They have some sort of a
Cranbrook
massive energy
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah, that same again, Monopoly there, Eon's
This
got
is what you don't want. You don't want to be tied
So
in.
we have to be very careful. Yeah.
Well, they were quite honest. 10-year contract. It's not as cheap as gas, but it's not as dear as electric. So I said, surely you want to be cheaper than gas. But this guy said, look, I don't have control of it. Ideally, it wants to be cheaper in everything, so you can promote that.
I think it's more about they're trying to sort of cut the carbon emissions.
I think it's great to be skeptical because with my background anyway, unfortunately, the community and the public sector doesn't necessarily have the skill sets or the money to hire expensive lawyers, but many private sector organizations do, and they normally run circles around, and that's how maybe a contract like Cranbrook gets developed. So I think we have to be, you're exactly right to be skeptical, but realistic and hopeful, right?
Yeah, I'm not against projects as long as we don't pick up the bill or it goes into millions and millions and then it all gets tied up. That's what I'm saying. So there's a lot going on out there, and that's only a small minute. So if somebody's tonight, I will go back. Tony will go back. I reply to the emails in the mornings. I reply in the evening. I've got a whole list to do. So if you've sent me an email, I will reply to you and I will do my best. But we are up against brick walls right now. And like I said, I will chip at them walls. I'm not popular. I'm not disrespectful to anybody, but we want action. The community wants a change. We want it happening now. I got told to sit down in the assembly, which I had to sit down. I had a lot more to say.
This is the Devon County Council.
Devon County Council, right? Lovely people, all there to help to change. I just would have liked to have a member or two members on the cabinet because, like I said, we have 18 reform. We represent a big portion of Devon.
Yeah. Hey, Neil, before you leave now, you were mentioning that you're going to do something interesting, the Devon and Dorset Regiment.
Okay, so a gentleman who used to be the head of the council has invited me with the Devon and Dorset Regiment, where we go to Falmouth. Tony's going as well. We're going to go up there and just show the 80-year respect, where we go to a service that'll be happening this Saturday. Okay, so we're going to go out and show our respects. Being ex-military, I think we should, and that should be good.
Fantastic. Thank you, Neil. So we're going to take a very short break so that we can bring on our two mystery guests, and Neil's going to depart. Thank you so much for waiting for us. Hi, guys. So we're back again, and with our two mystery guests. So Neil's left us, and we're going to chat on a little bit with Tony. But we're
I'm
joined.
keeping his seat warm now.
Oh, you'll do a better job, I'm sure.
Oh, thank you.
So we're joined by. Can I say your name? Bertie from the university. Young man and slightly older man, but by only 1 year.
That's not very
John.
nice, is it?
I think I'm more than 1 year older. I think I'm several.
Welcome.
Wiser. I'd like to think that I'm maybe a decade in wisdom, really,
Yeah.
which is what matters.
And how these people, I'm going to cut to you, Tony, a second, okay? Just be patient. Okay?
No, that's all right.
Yeah. But we actually had a team of 3 university students with us, and they did a fantastic job. One outcome was we had a demographic analysis of which streets not to knock on, which is incredibly useful. And we met not all the time with you guys, but our campaign team met every week for about 12 weeks, I think it was, before the campaign. So thank you very much for your contribution. So before we get to you, let's just finish up with you, Tony, because I'm curious about a couple things. What about the Cowick Street Firehouse? What is that big enough to be used for a hall?
Well, it is, and it's always been a community hub. It is one of those things that there's not much we can do unless people come together and actually show how much they want to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Because Exeter City Council are adamant they want to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't sell it as a going concern, they will quite simply change the planning to make it to apartments. And then that's what will be.
Mm-hmm.
More apartments.
Okay, so we're gonna show everybody, we're gonna work with everybody how we work with the community, and we're gonna put pedal to the metal. Over the next 6 months, we're gonna raise all the money we need, and then we're gonna present that big piggy bank to the council and say, here it is, right?
You've got to do the asset to the community.
ACV, right?
ACV to
21 signatures we need? Is that
21
right?
signatures, and also that should sort of stop the process for a while. They're quite happy to receive that, and they are, in fairness, open to any offers. But I got told essentially a lot of charities come towards them with the same ideas, and all of them have failed. We don't like failing. That's the simple truth. You know, we both, and all of us, believe that fire station is an asset to the community. It will be lost. Once it's sold, it's sold. And then we look at it around that area again. What else are they going to sell? Well, wherever that money goes to, that like I said, is another subject.
I totally agree. It's sort of like when you sell off a school's property. You know, schools used to have a lot of property, but then you sell off the property, then it gets smaller and
even
smaller. You never get
the
that
heat
money.
source
You never
pump,
get that land back.
Even the heat source pump land, that's been sold as well, remember? And again, that's more money into the budget. Where that goes to, again, we don't know.
What are you referring there, Tony?
The heat source pump thing that Neil was talking about.
Yeah.
Obviously, the land that it sits on was council land.
Oh, I
now, I'm
didn't know
assuming
that.
that was sold to the by the council.
Okay.
Or will be. And again, where does that money go to?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I know, for example, in the NHS, many times when you sell assets off, it goes to the central fund. So I totally.
Well, it goes to wherever it goes to. You know, it doesn't seem to be put back into the community
necessarily,
which is important.
Yeah.
You know, we pay into the system. It'll be nice to get some of it back again.
Yeah. Because Alfrington Village Hall is a tremendous use to the community.
Well, it is, and you can see how beneficial it is with Chatterbox and how it involves the community.
Yeah, and it relates to the church
people
as well.
want to sort of come together.
Yeah. I remember
it looks after the aged as well. It checks on them. It does all sorts.
Yeah. I remember when I went there a couple months ago, I met an older man, even older than I am. John, don't laugh. But anyway, and I think his name is Michael. I'm not sure. But he was very lonely. He just wanted to chatterbox. He wanted to chat with me.
It's coming together, you know.
I said, hey, Michael,
reminiscing.
Why don't you go to the church? I'll be there tomorrow, which I was. And sure enough, he was there. So these different community activities relate to each other, and having that as one of the anchors is important, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you can see the benefit, and that's what we want for St Thomas and Exwick. Exwick, to be honest, has got a community hall. We've got a church hall, but we need something bigger to sort of fill in the gap and help all the other people. But that's probably just me. I don't know.
John, do you, the community that you're from?
What, back home? Sorry, or here in Exeter?
What's that like? Do they have a community centre there, or
in London?
You're from London?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what?
Did you not know that?
Well, what part of London? Okay.
I'm from southeast London. I'm from a sunny area of Lewisham.
Okay, perfect. I know Lewisham. I used to work there, actually.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
I mean, do they? Well, every metropolitan area has different communities, I guess. Does Lewisham, refresh my memory, do they have an area where they get together?
I mean, there are community centres. There are public libraries. Public libraries often function as community centres. But I mean, it's whenever you have very high housing prices, the first thing to go tends to be community centres because, land becomes very expensive and community centres aren't profitable to run. I mean, you can definitely make the case that they are worth running, but they're second and third order effects. And, you might say, well, I had a fantastic community centre when I was growing up, but that you can't exactly do a cost-benefit analysis.
I totally agree. Tell us about your area, Bertie. Where are you from?
So I'm from Brighton.
Oh, yeah. I worked there for 5 years.
Is there anywhere you didn't
Small
work?
world. Well,
so anywhere you did work?
I'm not going to disclose my age. Just chill out, okay? Go ahead, Bertie.
From the Brighton Pavilion constituency. I don't think I've ever really used a community centre. I know there are churches nearby. There's Withdean Stadium nearby, but I don't really have much experience in this regard.
Okay, thanks. So Tony, back to you now, because I'm interested in holding politicians to account. Okay?
Oh, right.
I'm an independent person. Let's see. Did we talk about Maryville Road and the abandoned?
Yeah. I've had. Right. Well, they're not abandoned. They're building sites. I've got to say they're not abandoned buildings. They are building sites.
Okay.
I mean, the update on that is I've got hold of the guys involved in the council to do with that, and essentially I don't know if it's sort of him delaying it, but he's saying that we've now got we've managed to get the funds to do the job. We've got a couple of weeks of doing something else, and then we have to put it out to tender, and then the plans have to be made. So, give or take, and I mean, whether this is true, because it's been going on for years, they do say in the next 9 months, you should see building being done. Now, obviously, seeing's believing on that. If and when the building's done, I'd be really pleased if it went back into the local community for local people, because there are a few people that have been displaced from the original buildings that were done.
How many houses are we talking about there?
At a guess, 6 or 7. Okay. I mean, I noticed Newman Road's another one where we've got the same problem. And then you've got to look at the expense at the moment. You've got scaffolding up, you've got fencing up, you've got security that has to be done. I mean, you're probably talking about 20,000 a year just for that. And that's been going on for, we'll say, quite a few years now. So that's £20,000 of our money that's gone into a project, gone into that. Yeah. When in reality, it would have been nice if they sort of procured the money from wherever and finished the job.
Okay. So we've now sort of I've gone down the list of things that we discussed the last time we met. Thanks for the update. And I think, to me, the big takeaway here is you're going to work with your brother on the graffiti issue with the council, and we're going to have our army of people ready to deploy them. And the most interesting thing to me also is the firehouse. I'm looking forward to working.
Well, like I said, how much do the community want places like that? Maybe they don't.
Raising the money.
I don't know.
Well,
maybe I'm making a big thing about something like that.
We need to.
But just remember, when it's sold, it's gone.
Yeah. Okay, so what has happened in the last week or two here? You mentioned to me something about the Guinness Trust, I think, Tom?
Yeah. One of the issues in Exwick, which is getting quite bad, is we'll call them shrubbery for better words. It's just gone ridiculous now. It's covering the pavements one side as you got Farm Hill. It's stopping people from using the pavement.
Where's Farm Hill?
Farm Hill's off Kinnerdon Way. It leads to the Farm Hill estate. It's just a road that goes up, essentially, which has a lot of houses in. As usual, I can go back to highways on this one. I went out with highways to highlight some of the other issues, and that was one of the things I highlighted. I got told by them, it's not our land, it's Guinness Trust land, as done by the registry, and that Guinness Trust are aware of it. So I did end up emailing Guinness Trust to make them aware of it, and surprisingly enough, they are aware of it. But they seem very reluctant in sorting the problem out.
Okay, well, you're on the case, and if need be, we'll deploy our army of volunteers.
Well, as
right?
usual, it's another email.
Well, also, it tees you up for an opportunity to have a conversation with them.
Well,
which is
it's
great.
getting those numbers again, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to our audience, you can gain the sense that Tony knows the area very well. He's lived here all of his life. How about around where you live, John, in leafy London? Now, Lewisham, I know that area. But I don't. Do you have many problems with overgrown hedges?
In Lewisham's not known for its long hedgerows. Lewisham is known for its barren concrete. I wouldn't say that overgrown hedges is an issue we particularly face.
Okay, well, let's touch on the graffiti then. Is there any graffiti there?
Of course, there's a great deal of graffiti in Lewisham, but Lewisham is not a terribly wealthy area. It's being gentrified to some degree now, but for a long time has been an area of relatively low incomes.
There's some very nice areas to Lewisham, though. Vague recollection, I used to get off on the Overground or something, and then I used to walk through to the CCG where I worked in Lewisham. There were some really nice aspects.
There are some lovely areas. The nicer areas are probably more Blackheath or Greenwich.
Yeah.
But Lewisham, I like it because it's home fundamentally. Yeah, that's what it will always be. Yeah.
Bertie, now down in Brighton, what about the graffiti down there? I honestly don't remember graffiti being a big problem in Brighton as compared to how it is here, frankly. What's your take on that?
Well, there's graffiti everywhere. So in terms of everywhere in the world, every city has graffiti.
Not all
you
cities.
think that they manage
Well,
it better than
maybe not all cities,
our area
but-
here? What's the difference, on scale? For example, I'll give you an example. If you went to New York City, okay, there's a lot of graffiti there. If you looked on the subways, there's a lot of graffiti on the cars. So how does it relate to Exeter is what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, I don't think I haven't noticed a significant difference, but there is graffiti. If you take an underpass with just bare concrete walls, then you're going to have graffiti because you are. But
Tony, just going back to my list here, what else has been going on with you?
Well, as from a couple of days back.
Thank you, Bertie.
Thanks a lot, Ben. As from a couple of days back, our grants have become available to us. So I am getting sort of people coming in, the charities and that, with wanting to know whether they can have some money towards contributing towards some of the things that they need, want, or to support their charities.
And how does that work? How much?
Well, we get £8,000 each as county councillors, and each local councillor gets £3,000 each. So I will add, don't forget that. And then what we do is we sort of have a look at where people want the money to go and would like, and hopefully, if it's allowed and we put in for it, we will allocate money to that cause. And obviously the cause has to be the well-being of people. It can't be for just one person. Yeah. Unfortunately, there are times you think, well, I'd love to give that person some money.
Okay, so people need to email you. Is there a form that they need to use, Tony? Or,
well, this is what we're going to find out next week, Rob.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, I don't know what you lot think.
And what else? What's the time frame for that then?
I don't know actually until next week when we find out how we can get our hands on the money.
Fantastic.
We've got a list of people, or I have. I don't know what Neil's doing. A list of people who, so far, I feel are worthy of giving money to, and obviously it's spread right across from various things. It's just working out how much, and of course anyone else who wants to get involved in sort of applying.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Tony.
It has to go. I was going to be saying we have to spend it by March, else it gets put right back into the council again.
Okay.
And who knows where it goes after that?
Okay, well, I'm sure to reduce our taxes, right? Wayne,
Of course, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to flip this around a little bit. And I'm going to give you the power of the people, those two young men over there. Is that okay, Tony?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So just to rewind the clock a little bit, I first met you guys a few months ago now or something like that. And because one of the reasons was I was seeing all sorts of tweets on the Reform Exeter Twitter page, and I was wondering who the flip is doing these tweets. And it comes out, am I allowed to say that one of you guys, I don't know who it was doing an awesome job. And anyway, so that's how I met you, and thank you very much for doing that. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to say who, but one of you guys feels so that our cause is so important of restoring this community that you believed you would forego a little bit of cash to pay for the monthly contribution to make it a verified Twitter account. So thank you very much. Okay.
Oh, which one, I wonder?
But fundamentally, what I'm really curious about is, why, not only why are you here, but why is politics important to you in this particular time? Why is this Reform Party of interest to you? John, tell me a little bit about that.
I became politically aware probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I was interested in the state of things as they were getting worse through COVID. And energy prices were going up, inflation was increasing, the cost of living crisis was really hitting pretty hard. And it didn't seem like people in politics had very many answers, and it didn't seem like they'd really understood what they'd done. And there was not really an alternative to the two-party system. You could either vote for Labour, who didn't really know what they were doing and, could potentially end up causing a great deal of decline, or you could vote for the Tories, who I think largely stand for the same thing. And it's a concept called the uniparty, where you end up with essentially only one choice. And that was very dispiriting to me. That was very bleak. And I didn't think that any politicians were really giving proper answers. So I started to get more into politics. I started to look into Conservatives and Labour and where they'd come from and who the different main politicians were. And then Reform kind of emerged onto the scene and were very anti-establishment and very willing to admit the failures of the past. And I think conservatism now is very backwards. And if you speak to some conservative politicians, they truly do believe that all we need to do is go back to the 1980s and everything will simply fix itself. And I think it's much more complex than that. And I think you need to be far more progressive. And part of the reason we have graffiti, part of the reason we have some amount of decay, part of the reason we have so many problems is because I think we have a real problem with hopelessness. And I think one of the real appeals of Reform, say what you will about policy or any particular individuals, I think Reform have stood on a platform of hope.
I agree.
And trying to actually look towards the future with a vitality and a real spirit. And I don't think the Tories have done that, and I don't think Labour have done that. And so fundamentally, that's why I believe Reform are the best bet going forwards.
Bertie, what do you think about that? What strikes a chord with me, what John was saying, is that I'm proud of this country. I wasn't born in this country. I'm proud of my country in America. I'm proud of this country. It's an amazing heritage, and I'm very optimistic for this country. It's a fantastic culture, and I think, to me, that's what this party reflects, whereas many of the other parties, the uniparties, you accurately described it, I don't feel the sense of pride in this country and the optimism and hope for the future. Bertie, does that make sense to you, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It just, it seems like Reform UK are the only party that really have a sense of pride and patriotism.
A vision for the future of, because what I've seen anyway, in America actually as well, but over here particularly, is it's sort of like a revolving door. It doesn't matter if you're a conservative, it goes to Lib Dems sometimes, it goes to Labour, but you still got the graffiti, it gets things worse. The weeds are there, right, Tony?
Yeah, it just gets worse. And like like John said, it's just been a two-party system, and it did need change. The change is happening there in some ways. I mean, you've only got to look at Labour, who think that we're the threat now, and not the Conservatives.
Yeah. It's because we have a great vision, and great vision for the great country. And so what's happening at the university? Some of that may be confidential or classified, so just be careful about that, okay, guys? I know you're enthusiastic, but are you organizing over there? Is this a massive revolution you're planning, or what? Huh?
The long march through the institutions.
Speak up, Johnny. Come
the
on.
long march through the institutions 2.0. Not quite. I mean, young people tend to be far more left wing, and they tend to get right wing as they get older. That's a very common sentiment that's existed for decades, really. And so most young people are either politically apathetic, or tend to be quite left-wing. Interestingly, the left doesn't seem to have quite as much support as they maybe had a decade ago. Things are definitely changing, but they're taking their time, as all things do. You know, these are cultural movements; they take a long time to change. We've had a good amount of support. It's not like we can't find people to support us. We've had, a lot of support actually, but a lot of the support has been less public.
Do you have different societies there, or
I mean,
how do you guys get together?
There's no reform society.
And why is that then?
There's been some movement on that, but there have been some stumbling blocks, both administrative and.
Is that simply because the university don't want a reform party, or because there's not enough interest?
I don't think it's either of those things. We're busy. We're students. We've just been struggling to get off the ground. You know, there have been a few. There's definitely been interest. There's definitely been a lot of interest. There are a number of political societies. We're also friends, of course. We just meet up outside of the university here. So there's definitely support. Like I was saying, a lot of the support is slightly more hushed. Young people are, I don't know if scared is the right word, but definitely hesitant.
Is that hesitant to say that they're reform, or just
hesitant to say they're right wing as a whole? Really,
Well, we aren't right wing.
I was going to say I don't consider
I'm
myself.
mainstream.
I don't consider myself right wing at all.
I've always been mainstream.
Right.
In fact, I'm ashamed to say it, frankly, but I voted for Hillary in 2016 because I thought she was mainstream, and then I figured out she wasn't. But anyway,
why are you mainstream, Rob?
Why am I mainstream? Because I can see that my whole philosophy. Part of my philosophy, John, is that I think there's goodness in everybody. Okay, there are good aspects of almost every person. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten, for example, politicians. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been elected. So if they were elected, that means they stood for something that's good. But we'll come back to that. Bertie, now you told me an interesting story about how you came across John. I think you attended some sort of interesting debate, or tell us about that.
Yeah, so I attended a debate at Debate Society where you had different political societies, I think 5 of them. And one thing I noticed was that we had a little vote at the beginning and the end to see who members of the audience supported. And towards the end of the debate and at the beginning as well, you could see sort of people moving away from the Conservatives and the Labour Party.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that just because they
didn't
change their mind through the debate then?
Yeah, I think quite a few of them did. They were.
I mean, sorry if I can steal slightly. In the debate, it was largely expected that the politically aligned parties would defend their political party's views, and so the Conservatives had to defend what the Conservatives had done, and Labour had to do the same. And as I said, we've seen a spectacular failure of the mainstream parties in the last 10 years, so it was incredibly easy for the extremes to critique the centre. And so on almost any political issue, because we, as an independent university society, have no policy, we have no political precedent, we're not a party. And so we were not really able to be critiqued, while the Conservatives and Labour were extremely easy to be critiqued. They said some interesting things, but I was sitting next to the gentleman who I won't say who he was, but he was from one of the major political parties.
No names.
And we were asked a question about a trade agreement post-Brexit called the TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I answered the question first, and I watched him next to me on his laptop look up what the TPP stands for and how it would affect Britain, and then gave an answer that he assumed would have aligned with his party's politics based on literally the 30-second Google search. And I think that is shockingly reflective of mainstream party politics, because, I mean, I've spoken to a number of Tory MPs in the last little while, and they are a combination of shockingly out of touch and not terribly well read.
Well, I'm impressed by you three. Now, your other colleague isn't here today, and by the way, your other colleague was the brains, the geek that put together this amazing demographic analysis, and I'm sure
we were the brawn. We really didn't supply any of the brains.
But back to you, Bertie. What you're saying about the support got eroded away from both parties. That's exactly what happened with you, Tony, and Neil.
Well, I mean, it shows you on the local elections how support right across the country sort of. I mean, initially from the Conservatives, but from Labour, and what's happened, So hopefully this will be reflected, and we shall see in 4 years' time.
Yeah. Because if you take a look at your division, Exeter and St. Thomas, and Neil's and Alphington Cowick, it's simple math. Okay, even somebody like me can do the math, and all the Labour, the amount of votes that Labour decreased by between this election and the previous one, and the amount of votes the Conservatives, were almost exactly the amount that Reform got. So, dispensing with all the detail, effectively, there are a lot of dissatisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I'm realistic.
Voters,
I mean, I accept some of the votes I got were protest votes.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly wasn't because I'm a lovely, lovely person.
Well, I remember one thing that really strikes me is I was filming with my iPhone a video of this lady in my front garden with your brother, right? And she was a Labour supporter all her life. Lovely, absolutely lovely lady. And there are many people that are like her that are proud of her country, of this country. And she was really upset as to what's happened with this country. And I think, to me, that she's representative of the massive shift that's happened. Guys, what do you think about that concept? Does that make
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think I've been speaking too much. Bertie, do you want to take this one?
No, I mean, it's...
People talk specifically about they use the phrase the Westminster bubble, and so it's very interesting. There are lots of articles that have started to come out recently as the mainstream media have started to realise that they're actually allowed to do more than just surface level critique, and they talk lots about the Westminster bubble. And for a long time, the Tories have become progressively more and more out of touch with the common voter, and it's largely been because they have been trying to curry favour with Westminster elites, with civil servants, with the professional managerial class in London, lawyers, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And as such, they've been largely insulated from the consequences of their own decisions, and they've been totally out of touch with the average voter.
Can I give you an example of that?
Absolutely.
I moved down here about 4 years ago, and before then I was in Virginia Water for 20 years, something like that. And there's an individual, a man that was a very senior in the Surrey County Council. And so I asked him, I said, I'm not going to, no names, okay?
No names.
Anyway, so I said, hey, by the way, in Virginia Water, there's a bus that goes by all the time, and there's normally like one person on the bus. And it's emitting, he was very concerned about climate change, as we all are. And so I said to him, how come this bus is going by emitting all these fumes, only one flipping person on it? He said, well, I said, why don't you just give him a taxi voucher? He said, well, we've got to encourage people to go on the buses. I said, yes, but you haven't. You've been in power for like 8 years. So I think the common sense, I've lost a little bit of common sense in trying to go through a checklist, I think, to curry favor, as you were saying. What do you think about that, Bertie?
Well, occasionally I will see someone struggling to cycle up a hill and there's 7 cars behind them going about 3 miles an hour and they can't overtake him. And, that's, as far as I understand it, that's the least energy efficient state that an engine can be in. You probably know more about this, John.
So, yes, I'm in favour of building... What? I didn't know you were so in favour of building cycling infrastructure.
Huh? No more cycle lanes.
No,
please.
you're not in favour of cycle lanes.
No, at all.
Well, that's one of the reasons.
Well, I operate an electric vehicle, but it's sort of
always remember,
classified vehicle.
Don't take it away from the motorists.
Yeah.
They're there as well, and they need the roads.
Well, I think there are ways for everyone to win, but I think it's a larger issue about planning permission and things like that.
So just before we leave here, because we just got a few minutes left, what I'm curious about is, do you sense that there's sentiments are changing with the young people, Bertie? I say young people, if you're young. Are you still young?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 18 years old. I'm still very young.
Okay, you're hanging in there. Do you notice that, are you able to have conversations more often with people, or are they insulting to you? Are things changing?
Yeah, I think things are changing. And I think, there's lots more people who are, they're afraid to say it, but we're on the same wavelength.
I think one of the things I found when I came out and said I was reform was not too much, but there was a little bit of abuse and name calling, which again surprised me.
Yeah.
But I can see why people don't come out with their political views.
Well, it's some of it's natural, isn't it? It's a new party, and the Conservatives and Labourers are tried and true.
Well, I think it's people read it in the papers, and that's what they want to believe.
Yeah. Now they know, that. Because we have a lot of votes actually, and normal people, I call them normal people, are actually voting for what we believe in, which is making Britain restoring.
Well, because of how well Reform did in the elections, I think obviously a lot of people didn't believe what was written, because there was a lot of stuff written about us Reform before the elections. To try and sort of keep the vote count down.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, so this is going on Facebook and YouTube. You going to be afraid to walk the streets of the university next few days, guys? Or are you going to be okay?
Well, you need a protection team. That's what Rob's saying.
Well,
how's it going to be?
There is definitely abuse at the university for students who are willing to speak up, and it is something we've had to seriously think about, and it's not something we take lightly. And it is a little bit scary, yes. But I think all radical parties, all vanguardism starts off in the extremes, starts off belittled, starts off being critiqued.
Yeah, good point.
And you need people to start standing up for it. And so maybe we're the beginning of the wave to stand up for it. Although
somebody's got to start the ball moving.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, now, Bertie, you're a PP. We're going to leave pretty soon, but Bertie, you're a PPE major. So, are you going to be able to share this with your classmates? And
Bertie doesn't go to lectures, so he can't share.
Oh, what a life!
Fantastic. Anyway,
wow, thanks for outing me,
I think
John.
we're going to wrap
Thanks
this
for
up
ratting
tonight.
him there. Look.
I think the people I do know, yes, I will be able to, but that's because I'm very selective with the people I associate with.
You definitely have to be selective, otherwise you do end up.
So we're going to wrap things up. It's been really great having you guys on, and we're going to look forward to our campaign for the Exeter City Council elections and using
onward
your
and upward, as
intellectual
they
knowledge.
say.
Yeah.
Onward and upward.
And Tony, I'm going to look forward to holding you and your brother account. I know you're not just another pretty face, but I want to hear more good things about the Cowick Street Fire Station, about the graffiti.
Well, like I said,
Okay.
if
progress,
the local
okay?
residents want it, you have to back us.
Okay.
We have to have something to present.
Yeah. Well, and the leadership is going to be great that you're providing to bring everybody together to make that happen. So thank you very much for joining. We hope that you've had a good time tonight, guys, and we'll see you
for having
next
us.
week,
Thank you very
Thursday
much.
at 6
Been a
o'clock
pleasure.
again.
Cheers.
Take care.